Brambro back with Grand Tactician Civil War. CSA campaign in 1.09 beta. No tactical battle this episode, but there's a lot of campaign level operational maneuver. Robert Patterson, commanding the Federal's Department of Pennsylvania, is quite uncharacteristically active and gives Joe Johnston some fits today. Meanwhile, quite a few of our newly recruited brigades, including quite a few viewer brigades, have mustered up and are ready for service, and they are on their way to the front. Last episode, I briefly went through the most prominent command of each of these 8 generals here, basically the reason why they were full generals, mostly, Army command in most cases. And while I was talking through that, mentally I noted the term Army of Tennessee came up several times. When one reads about this war, one of the more prominent narratives that keeps coming up in various books and documentaries and so forth is how there was this revolving door of generals, and the Army of the Potomac, and Lincoln kept trying to find a general that would do what he wanted. McClellan didn't work out, and then Burnside didn't work out, and Hooker, and Meade kind of worked out, and they left him in command, but I think we need to send Grant to kind of babysit him a little bit. And that's just one of the dominant narratives that tends to come up all the time about the Civil War. And meanwhile, through much of that period, Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia were just kind of running circles around these guys. Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville and et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's also, it's all out there in the history. I'm not saying that it's just not covered, but one narrative that's not quite as prominent is how Jefferson Davis had an extremely similar situation in the West with the Army of Tennessee. Out of these 8 generals, 5 of them commanded the Army of Tennessee at some point, or the body of troops that would later become the Army of Tennessee. Albert Sidney Johnston was the first. It wasn't called the Army of Tennessee yet at that time, but leading up to Shiloh in early 1862, but he commanded that army. And long term, probably there's no way to be certain, right? It's kind of an incomplete set of data upon which to speculate. But it's pretty plausible to think that long term, he probably would have been perfectly fine and would have commanded that army all the way through, just like Lee did in Virginia. But he was killed at Shiloh. Command devolved on Beauregard. Well, that didn't work out. Davis didn't much care for Beauregard, or vice versa. So he was kind of maneuvered out. Command went to Braxton Bragg, who retained command of that army for well over a year. Bragg comes in for a lot of criticism in the literature. My own opinion of Bragg has kind of evolved, and I don't want to get into the details of that, go off on too much of a tangent, but I'll just say the more one reads about Bragg and the challenges he faced and how he dealt with them, I'm not going to say he was successful and he was a great general. He wasn't. But it's a little more nuanced, right? You get into the details and the truth gets more complicated. I don't think he's as terrible as many people say. But in any case, then Bragg doesn't work out. Command goes to Joe Johnston. Well, that doesn't work out. Davis gets unhappy with Johnston. So he gets rid of Johnston and gives command of that army to John Bell Hood. And that doesn't work out so hot either. Hood did do what Davis wanted him to do. That's got to be said. And it didn't really work out. And so then Hood gets booted, and at this point, we're kind of into 1865 now. Options are running dry, and Davis has to actually recycle commanders, and he gives the army back to Joe Johnston, who retained it till the end of the war. And so one can kind of say Lincoln eventually solved his problem about the command of the Army of the Potomac, or at least arrived at a good enough solution to carry on through the end of the war. That solution being retaining Meade in command, but putting Grant in overall charge of all the armies, not just the Army of the Potomac. But Grant moved with the Army of the Potomac during 1864-65. On the other hand, Davis essentially never satisfactorily solved the problem of the command of the Army of Tennessee. Anyway, that was just a kind of an interesting little sidelight that I thought was worth talking about for a few minutes. And I think I might do that with future episodes. Just talk for a couple of minutes about these guys or maybe some other topics for 4 or 5 minutes at the beginning. Some people I think like that. I like talking about it. Other people's may not, but, I chapter the videos. If you don't want to listen to me blather on about that stuff, well, those guys have already skipped ahead. Okay, let's get into the episode. Right here at the start, I'll mention there are a couple more viewer units added to our armies. Here in the Carolinas, we've got the new unit. It's not really new. I renamed something I'd already recruited. But we have the Lincolnshire Redcoats with red and white trousers. And I did actually have some Springfield rifle muskets captured from the first battle at Bull Run. And so these guys are coming. I've put William Cabell in command of these guys. Fairly interesting character. William Cabell fought mostly in the West, in the Trans-Mississippi. Did make brigadier. He didn't hold any real senior commands. After the war, was mayor of Dallas several times, Dallas, Texas. He is not a Texan at this point. He moved to Texas after the war. I believe he was originally born in Virginia. And then over in the West, we have, just came in, new request, the 69th Berserkers from Alabama. And didn't have a specific commander asked for, other than give him some high initiative and otherwise doesn't have to be too bright. Well, we got Thomas Green here, who is not and this is the commander that the AI assigned to this unit when I made it. He's pretty good, and he's got high initiative, so I left him. The AI is, unlike the player, the AI is able to assign volunteers from other states when they auto-generate a commander. So this is a Texas volunteer commanding Alabama troops. Something that I could not do if I wanted to set this up this way. So if I were to take him out of command, I could not put him back in. Anyway, kind of had what was asked for. So Thomas Green, there you go, 69th Berserkers. And also, not a viewer unit. I guess this is the one YouTuber unit. We got Brambro's outfit here. This is my avatar. I didn't create a special unit for him. I just put him in command of a unit. And I'm going to move Bram around. At some point, maybe he'll become a division commander, maybe corps commander, whatever. But for now, he's commanding Brambro's brigade. And I just gave him all black, right? They're all emo or goth or something. Yeah, they're anticipating Robert Smith by over a century. What was this goth thing? We were doing that a century ago. We just didn't know what to call it. All right. So we've had our 2 battles up here in Virginia. And McDowell has been chased back across the river to District of Columbia, which is awesome. I was pretty happy to see that was his retreat point. I don't think he had to go that far. He could have just come up to Alexandria. So it's nice that he went further. And we got Alexandria back. That is now properly a Confederate city. That's the good news. The bad news is, well, we've got Winchester completely uncovered at the moment. And this army of occupation, could really just walk in and take it. I don't think there's much we could do about it. I'm pretty hesitant to separate these two armies again, because we do have Patterson and McDowell combined here, and they're still pretty big. Even after their upcoming contract expirations, there's still quite a bit of Union force here, because we have the newly recruited Army of the Potomac established here at Annapolis as well. So I kind of want to keep these two armies concentrated here. And this goes right back to the same kind of geographical problem presented here in Northern Virginia that I talked about in episode 1, in that it's hard to coordinate supporting armies across this river and mountain line here. It doesn't extend across very well. And that's clearly visible whenever you get to the Army Corps structure and look at the Army commander's command radius. It's broken. It is stopped by mountains. I think what I'm going to do is let's move Beauregard kind of over to about here. A little bit west of Alexandria, and then let's move Johnston, if I can get the mouse over. There we go. Go ahead and move him back over to Winchester. I think I want him building a fort up here. A fort, something like right around in this area, just north of this junction, so that a Union army coming either from Maryland or from West Virginia kind of has to deal with the fort first before they can walk in and take Winchester. I think that's Johnson's next job there. And then we'll have McDowell kind of here where he can respond back toward Alexandria, or he can cross the Blue Ridge fairly quickly. I think that's what I'm going to do. All right, so those guys are given orders. And for the other armies, it's really just kind of stay where you are, keep an eye on whatever's going on in their area, and wait for our recruited brigades to show up. We have quite a few recruiting. And you can see here, we don't have very much manpower left after all the recruiting I've done. Volunteers available, 23,000. Which, sounds like quite a few brigades still, especially at the 1,500 troop level that I'm trying in this campaign. But as I've mentioned before in other campaigns, remember that's broken up by state. There's not very many individual states that have more than maybe 1,000 to 1,500-ish volunteers. And that is the same pool that replacements have to come out of to address attrition and casualties. So, I don't want to zero out the available volunteers. There's some states that start that way. Virginia has 0 volunteers. Just to show the state by state, I'm not recruiting a unit here, but just to bring up Well, Alabama's got about 2,000, but again, replacements have to come out of this. If I make another infantry brigade, that's 500 guys for replacements. Now, Kentucky has a fair number of volunteers. I can make another brigade here. The problem with that is Kentucky 61 support. So it wouldn't be the... I'm thinking about that. Most of our fighting is going to be on Confederate territory. I think 61 is viable. I'm going to go ahead and recruit a Kentucky brigade here. And oh, by the way, I didn't really talk about it that much, but let me hold that for a second. Let's finish looking at the states. Now, Texas has got a fair number of volunteers as well, and I have had a request for another Texas unit, but it's for a cav brigade. I think I want to wait until I already created Ryan's Raiders, but there was another request for a Texas unit. I think I kind of want to wait until we get the cav reform to recruit that. But the other reason why I kind of left Texas alone is, and I think I did mention this in episode 1, all these forts over here have a tiny little Texas brigade in them already. Right now, they're just like 50 dudes, but they will eventually grow to 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, whatever. So I kind of want to leave those Texas, I kind of want to leave that Texas volunteer pool fairly robust to provide the replacements to flow into these little garrisons and kind of passively grow basically a small corps worth of infantry over here to be ready in 1862. So I'm leaving the Texas pool mostly alone. And then we've got over 2,000 in West Virginia, which is a little irritating, right? Because at this point, West Virginia has not seceded or re-seceded back to the Union, right? And if everything goes as intended in this episode, in this series, they never will. It's just part of Virginia. And yet, it is still broken out separately in the recruiting pool and much, much lower state support. Even on Confederate territory, this is a little bit too low. And that's why I haven't recruited West Virginia troops, because, well, they just wouldn't be worth much of a damn. Kentucky 61, I think that's viable. I think we can make that work. 52, that's just a hair too low. And then also showing here, we do have a fair number of folks available in Cuba. That's nice to have. And they've got pretty high support in both Cuba and Nicaragua. And I've already created a Nicaragua infantry brigade, which I believe is in the Department of Georgia, recruiting there. So in any case, we do have 23,000 volunteers, but most of that has to go to replacements, and any individual state really doesn't have that much. Just saw 1686. Same sort of thing here. North Carolina, I could recruit another brigade here, but that would leave less than 200 guys available for replacements to existing units. Okay. All right, so I was saying something about Kentucky. In past campaigns, specifically the last two Confederate campaigns, came up here and took Louisville early and got Kentucky to secede and become a Confederate state. Of course, it starts as Union held, and then you go through this period where now you got to go run around, take Covington, and you have to kind of make the state Confederate held as well as seceded. And that necessitates taking some Union cities as well. You got to take Cincinnati and Evansville in addition to the Kentucky cities, because some of the IIP towns in Kentucky are under the, like Hartford right here. This town goes blue or red depending on who holds Evansville, Indiana. This Maysville city right here and there's a bridge right next to it. There's a Maysville ferry across the Ohio. Whether or not these are Union or Confederate is dependent on who holds Cincinnati, Ohio. All that back and forth, and then that creates just a whole bunch of fighting in the Ohio Valley, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I really enjoyed that campaign. That was pretty cool. But all the fighting and then all the back and forth on the IIPs means that when Kentucky secedes, its support jumps up to 75, but then it just erodes from there. And it's pretty difficult to do much about it. And it gets down into the 30s. So another reason why I'm doing this kind of defensive thing in Tennessee and not messing with Kentucky is Kentucky still has a lot of support for the Confederacy. And if there's not a lot of fighting up there, then counterintuitively, I think Confederate support might stay higher in Kentucky by it remaining Union than if we try to make it Confederate. That seems backwards, but I kind of think that's how it's going to go. That's an experiment. I'm testing my theory. I don't think we will get as many recruits, right, as we would as if it were Confederate. But the state support for the recruits we do get, I think, might stay higher. I mean, that's the pretty common situation in Missouri. I have yet to pull off a campaign where I actually get Missouri to secede, despite taking St. Louis. But usually by the time you come up here and do that, there's like 8 billion Union armies running around in Missouri. And, you have to defeat them all and force them out of the state in order to get Missouri to secede. So it's much more difficult to get Missouri to secede, in my experience. There's probably a trick to it that I haven't caught on to. But in my experience, it's much more difficult to get Missouri to secede. So it typically stays Union, even when I hold a lot of the state and I hold St. Louis. And the state support in Missouri stays pretty high, to where recruiting Missouri troops is feasible. So I'm kind of hoping to do the same with Kentucky in this campaign. Okay, I talked more about that than I intended to. And I don't have much economic stuff to talk about because time hasn't advanced enough, and just there hasn't been any time for anything economic to happen. Right? I will mention it's July 17th. When we hit August 1st, right? That's when the monthly Econ is updated and you get the reports. And that's when the credit rating gets hit. Y'all saw how much I built during episode 1, right? Markets and news agencies, and I recruited pretty much all the brigades that I feel like are feasible. I've done more recruiting right here at the very beginning than I typically do. And so I expect this credit rating to get hit hard on August 1st. It might drop down well into the B's. All right, let's get rolling. And I'm about to spend more money again when Joe Johnson starts building this fort at Winchester. Okay, Patterson's doing some movement over there. We may have to go. Okay, I'm not starting this fort yet. It all depends. If Patterson tries to come down to Alexandria, we're going to have to bring Johnston back over. And McDowell's going to be available there to reinforce him. No, Patterson's being dilatory again. He does that a lot. No, it looks like he's just camping there next to DC. Okay, cool with that. Nope, now he's moving again. Kind of reluctant to start that fort building because I think I'm going to have to move Johnson again. Oh, I want McDowell in defensive mode. He is coming across. Damn it. All right. Come on. Come on back. Johnston. Despite being across the Potomac, I think McDowell is in reinforcement range. It's not at all clear to me that this is viable to go attack Patterson. Well, he's just coming on to attack. Oh, damn. Oh. I don't think that's viable. Basically, we would have to hope that we can make contact with and defeat, force a retreat on the Department of Pennsylvania, which itself is a little bit larger than Beauregard's army, before the Army of Northeastern Virginia shows up. Even if the Army of Northeastern Virginia is very slow to engage, right? Because they're going to start on the other side of the map and they have to march, and sometimes the AI doesn't do that very quickly. But just the presence of this force on the field will drive the numbers up so far that achieving the casualty percentage necessary to force a retreat, I don't think this is viable. I'm telling Beauregard to withdraw. And he's chasing me. Yeah. Well, so we've taken McDowell out of the equation, but because he's in retreat mode, now Beauregard is not available. And we've got another more than 2-on-1 situation. No, I think we have to wait until we can get both of our armies together. Johnson is going to withdraw as well. Look at Patterson go. That's very un-Patterson-like. That is very un-Patterson-like. However, I think we've got him where we want him now. McDowell's too far away. He's caught between two Confederate armies, neither of which is retreating now. So the last, I think the last 4 campaigns that I've fought, that I've posted on YouTube, had either elevated or very high aggression. This is on mediocre aggression. Well, can anybody tell the difference? Is this less aggressive than what the AI normally does in the opening stages of this start? I can't tell the difference. I don't know if that particular setting means a damn thing. I think the AI just does what it does, regardless. Okay. Yeah. Now we can go hit him. But while time's paused here, let's just go see what's maybe changed in other areas. Okay, McClellan hasn't moved at Grafton. Garnett's keeping an eye on him. I don't think we've had time for any of our recruited brigades to show up, so I don't think anything is new in any of the recruiting commands. Well, there might be because we've popped up to 56,000. We'll look in a moment. We're about 3/4 done with markets and news agencies, and only I guess it takes longer to build a hospital than it does to build a market or a news agency because I started these all at the same time. Army of the West up there. Oh, right. There's no telegraph connectivity over in Arkansas, so I want to set that up. And what I have typically done in the past is I create a little engineering unit, which most of in the last campaign it wasn't, but most of the time I use Montgomery as my capital. And I build a line across here just so there's a more direct line. And then I build kind of through Helena and up to Little Rock. Well, with this Trans-Mississippi Recruiting Department, I'm just going to use him. So I moved him over here. There's a telegraph station at Memphis. So if I build one right here on, I believe this would be the White River. It runs down through here. I think that's the White River in northern Arkansas. Oh, he can't build a telegraph yet because he has to be orange readiness. That's fine. He'll get there. Anyway, I'm just going to use him to build the telegraph through here. And then I still kind of want a telegraph station running up this way just to create a shorter path rather than looping all the way down through New Orleans and back up. I have this idea that would shorten order delay on the campaign map. I don't know if it actually does, but it seems like it would, right? And we'll use one of these Alabama brigades to run down here and do that once they get recruited. That might be a good job for Branborough's brigade, his Goths. And he's ready. Okay, Bram, go build some telegraph. Let's see. I need to detached independent unit. Apparently under Robert. What the hell? This is basically a corps level army, right? There's 3 little X's on top of the NATO symbol. So it's a, quote, army, unquote. But it's not a true army. The existing armies, like the Army of the Army of Northern Virginia, the Army of Shenandoah, are existing armies that Beauregard and Johnston command. I cannot replace them with Lee. He's read it out if I try to put him in command up there. Yet I can create a new army that he can command at the same level. So, in so many words, what's up with that? Fine. You know what? He's even an engineer. So, until I get the Army Corps structure, I'm just going to have Robert E. Lee lead Bram around building telegraph stations. Why the hell not? Yes, I know it's not min-maxing. This is not the best move, but whatever. It'll work. I'm not going to think of a fancy name. This is not a permanent unit. As soon as he builds a couple of telegraphs, it's getting disbanded, and Brambrough's brigade is going into an army. So, okay. So Lee, I'm down here to, let's see. I think Tuscaloosa will do. Yeah, come on down here. Probably just at this side of the river. That'll be right inside that radius. And then hopefully by the time you get there, your readiness will be good enough that you can actually build that. Meanwhile, has this Maryland brigade shown up? It has. See, this is a little dicey here, and it goes to what I was talking about earlier. This is a viewer unit, 2nd Maryland Brigade, 47 state support. I don't know how this is going to work out, putting him in the Army. But He's going. So what I'm going to do is they're going to head for one of the Virginia armies. I got to find it. But I don't want them to go there first. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put troops into this Hampton division. Because I want this force to go take Fort Monroe as early as possible. And it'll just take, just 2 days to get there. And I'm going to let Chesapeake Department disestablish. It's superfluous. I don't really need that. Carolina Department's pretty close. Okay, what do we have in no one's ready in the Trans-Mississippi yet. Central Department, Ruggles. Ruggles goes to the Army of Tennessee. Georgia Department, McLaws and Bartow, ready to go. They will go to one of the Virginia armies. Let's go ahead and I think Johnson's army needs troops. Yeah, Army of the Shenandoah needs troops more than Beauregard's army. Let's send McLaws and Bartow to Joe Johnston. I feel like I missed a recruiting command somewhere. Carolina. Okay. Viewer unit. Mr. Beast Tigers under William Loring. I think we're ready to create another division in the Army of the Shenandoah. Millage Bonham. That works for me. He's not terrible. And he usually develops pretty good. His stats aren't super great right now, but I've noticed that a lot of times when they're unassigned, show attributes, right? But then you put them actually in command, and simply the act of putting them in command will often give them a little buff. Like, I bet his leadership might pop up to 3 once he actually takes command, which won't happen until I exit out of this screen. Anyway, we'll have Bonham's division in the Shenandoah, and we're going to send the Mr. Beast Tigers under William Loring. And the Durham Light Infantry, commanded by anybody you like. We'll be going to Johnson's Army in the Shenandoah. There you go. And we've also got, this is a non-viewer unit, Iverson. Iverson's brigade. How does Iverson look? He's all right. Okay. There. Once all these guys arrive, then at least organizationally, they'll be about the same size as Beauregard's army. We'll still have fewer men because Beauregard's army has some more campaign start units that are larger than 1,500 men. Right, so that brings us back here, and we're going to attack the Department of Pennsylvania. Should wind up to be a pretty good battle. 19,000 troops. We have a combined almost 9,000 here, so about 23,000. And I think this point is worth making. Both of our armies are at orange readiness, but their morale, eager, in both cases. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, I can't attack yet. I've got to get Johnston out of this retreating status. But their morale is eager, their condition is good, their supply is fine. They're in their home territory. There's no reason why they cannot attack on orange readiness. And why I'm bringing that up is players, myself included, right? I mean, we saw this repeatedly in the last campaign. You fight a battle, You defeat the enemy, they retreat, and then boom, they just come right back and hit you again. And the question is, well, how did they recover their readiness so fast? If they're in their home state, they don't have to. I think that's a major reason why the AI keeps coming back and coming back and coming back so quickly. It's not because they're, quote, cheating, unquote, on readiness. It's they don't need the readiness. Just like right now, I don't need yellow or green readiness to go attack Patterson in Virginia. Neither one of these armies is in any shape to cross over into Maryland, right? They cannot do that. They can attack Patterson, and they're fine. Morale, supply, condition, all fine. I just need to get, I have to wait for Johnston to come out of retreating mode, though. He won't be eligible to reinforce, nor do I think he is eligible to actually tell him to attack. So I've given him an order, but I don't think it's valid. Let's see what happens here. What is Patterson doing? Okay, wait a minute now. Good news. Johnson is out of retreating mode. Bad news. Patterson just rolled on past and he's bopping around in the Shenandoah Valley. And now we're in a tail chase. Okay, I didn't see that coming. I can just hear all the comments now. You just let him walk right past you. What are you doing? Well, I don't know. I've never seen Patterson act like that before. Okay, I can chase him, but then now there's two Union armies up here by D.C. that could just waltz all the way down to Richmond if they so desired. I can chase him with one army, but one of these armies on its own is not quite big enough. He is causing IIPs to flip as he marches through here. Even if he's not, quote, raiding, unquote, that's going to have an effect on our Virginia state support. But I just don't have the forces to run him down and still address McDowell over here. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to chase him with Johnston. And I'm going to try not to fight him. But if I can make contact with him and then either withdraw or go into a siege situation, that's what I might do. Let's see if we can get him into a siege. He's got brigades on the way. Johnson's going to be 16,000 men here fairly quickly. So let's go try to, and he's in defensive mode, which means if I make contact, then there will be a siege option, and I'll put him in siege, waiting for those brigades to show up. And then we'll be in a situation where a tactical battle is viable. I think that's the way to, let's do it that way. Tell Johnson to come down. We'll just give him an order to come this far. He should make contact before then. Or he may have to continue to chase. No, he's still in retreating mode. I thought I saw the little floating thing that said has slipped away. We got to wait for him to come out of retreating mode. And he's moving real slow because he's crossing a river not at an IIP. He's a little bit south of this bridge. And I can't tell him to move differently because he's still on his retreating path, even though he's not actually in contact anymore. Come on, Johnston, get across the river. Faster than that. There he goes. Okay, now he's free. Looks like Patterson has stopped. Let's, well, we got railroad here. Let's see if he'll hop on the rail. Patterson has come out of defensive mode. So we may not get a siege option. Nope, Patterson's still running. Oh, and we do not have the siege option. Damn it. If I knew for sure that we would get it, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm going to tell them to withdraw. I'm going to wait for those additional brigades to show up. And why can't you see Patterson? How much longer till these brigades show up? They're only coming from North Carolina. They should be there like any day. 9 days. 9 days. 3 days. 3 days. 3 days. Oh, right. These 3 brigades are coming from Carolina. These 2 brigades are coming from Georgia. That's why they're taking. Okay, so in 3 days, he's going to have these 3 brigades. That'll be enough. Right, we have 3 more infantry brigades and an artillery unit ready to go in the Carolina department. And these are viewer unit. Well, the artillery's not, but we've got the Swedish Carolines or Carolines under Anders Stecken, Hampton South Carolinians, and the Lincolnshire Redcoats under William Cabell. They're ready to go. And they're going, as I talked about before, they are intended to campaign in Virginia with those armies up there or somewhere in Virginia. Initially, though, I am going to put them in what was the Hampton Division, but now I've given it the grandiose sounding name of the Army of Southeast Virginia. With their task being, we want to take Fort Monroe, put some artillery in there. This force is all viewer units. We've got the Cazadores Espanoles, the 2nd Maryland Brigade, the Swedish Carolines, Hampton South Carolinians, and the Lincolnshire Redcoats make up the entirety of this army. The artillery isn't, but they are. We'll just put the artillery in the divisions. I don't think I need a separate artillery. I do think they need a look. They're going to go do a fort siege. Kind of a lesson learned from my last campaign is you need a fair amount of artillery. And with these tiny artillery units, I don't even know if that's going to be enough. However, that siege will last a while. And while that is going on, he will pick up siege perks. And the casualties will not be enormous. I mean, the worst that can happen is they eventually lose their morale and readiness, and then they retreat, and they're just going to retreat up here to West Point or maybe back to Richmond, recover their readiness and morale, and then we can just send them back and go do it again. And by then, maybe we'll have more artillery available. So I'm not going to wait. I am going to wait for those units to show up. But as soon as they do, it should only be a couple of days. We're going to send Magruder's Army of Southeast Virginia to go besiege Fort Monroe. Anyway, I don't want to let Patterson out of sight, and we don't know what he's doing. So I'm going to have Johnson keep moving up the valley behind him, waiting for his brigades to report. I may have made him go too close. They may make contact again. Maybe not. Big question is, once Patterson gets to Stanton here and he's there, is he going to turn left or right? What if he turns left and goes into Virginia proper here? You may have noticed there was a whole bunch of construction completed. I think these are all of our markets. Yeah, news agency. Markets. So those are all complete now. The hospitals may not be. Yeah, this hospital's still building. The hospitals are still about a week away. Keep looking over here to see if there's any capture bar going on Alexandria. There's not. Oh my goodness, he has run down here. He's going to Lynchburg. He is going to Lynchburg. Fort Monroe may have to wait. Two days. 2 days. And actually, if I move him this way, he'll actually be getting a little bit closer. That may shorten the time for those brigades to show up. Yeah. For right now, let's move Magruder kind of over here. Right now, I'm just going to move him to Petersburg. We'll put him in position to support Johnston down here against Patterson in Southwest Virginia. Patterson's leading us on a merry chase here, and it's kind of getting our forces out of position. Like right now, if McDowell were to come back across the river toward Beauregard, he'd have a pretty clear advantage in troop count. He is capturing Lynchburg. Well, we saw that capture bar for a second. I think maybe he's moved on past Lynchburg. Changed my mind here on Magruder. I think Johnson has got enough forces. He's getting 2 more brigades here. He's going to be at 18,000 men. I think he's got enough forces to run down Patterson on his own. I think I'd rather have Magruder up here within reinforcement range of Beauregard. I think that's the thing to do with these guys. For now. Eventually, I want to get him back down there to Fort Monroe. Although I also kind of feel like once I commit him up here north of the Rappahannock, it's going to be hard to pry him out of there. Best laid plans of mice and men, right? Okay, Johnston, coming to Lynchburg. Okay, so they've gone for the Arming Civilian Ships Act. I think that's pretty standard. Johnson has marched enough where he has already picked up his first perk. Just moving on the campaign map builds XP. And just like I've done for the past several campaigns, I like that first perk for a corps to be ambulance. And I don't think I want him making contact just yet. I want him to get these 2 brigades. One day. Come to halt for a second. All I really wanted him to do was to keep eyes on where Patterson was. It may not be in time. Okay, siege situation. That works. He'll have time to get his brigade. I just have to. Yeah, it's in their favor right now. But he's going to get some more men here tomorrow. And then we'll be able to do a tactical battle, which I think will work in our favor. And Patterson's going to have to retreat a pretty long way to find a Union-held IIP. He may actually retreat over here to Hampton. That'd be funny. Or he could retreat up into West Virginia, up toward Grafton. He could do that. If Magruder will soon have 7,500 men, and Beauregard has got 14, so they're going to be about 22,000 combined. We could possibly take a crack at Washington. Possibly. We'll have to see. Our field and manpower has bumped up again. That means we should have more forces available that have arrived. Carolina Department. I don't think there's anybody new here. No. Okay. Trans-Mississippi. We've got some more forces here. I'm pretty happy with where the Trans-Mississippi Army is right now. McCulloch's got, well, these are really small brigades. Let's send one of these brigades to McCulloch. But then I'm going to send the other two to the Army of Tennessee. Okay. Central Department. Got several brigades ready here. They are intended for the Army of Tennessee. So here's the 69th Berserkers. We got Buckner. Most of these units have mixed musket. That's all I got. That's all there is. Tennessee Hog Drivers. Their way. That'll be in Hardy's division. We got George Pickett here. He really needs to be in Virginia, doesn't he? I don't really try to, I mix and match a lot, but there's a few guys. It's just like it's weird if they're. Yeah, I'm going to put Pickett in Virginia somewhere. Apparently, I don't have Jubal Early in command anywhere. That seems odd, too. He needs to be in Virginia. No. Sort by leadership. Yeah, McCown. McCown in the West. That works out perfectly. That's where he should be. Let's put him in command of that brigade. Okay, so that's going to bring Johnson up to 16,000. Now I'm going to send McCown over here as well. Okay. Put these little artillery units here so that these divisions don't go away. I have these division commanders in the recruiting commands. The idea here is that they're not real good in most attributes, but I look for guys that have like 2 stars in admin and 1 or no stars in everything else. And that way they kind of help out with getting the brigades ready and for training when they sit there. Right now, as soon as all the brigades recruit, boom, I'm sending them out. A little later on, some brigades might kind of sit in the recruiting commands for a while, and having the good admin guys back there helps them gain readiness and train up a little bit faster. I do have a couple more 100% ready little steamers. I could create a couple more little scouting fleets. Oh, I didn't finish looking at. Do we have anybody ready in the Georgia department? We do. John B. Gordon is ready to go. Let's send him up to Beauregard. And does Johnston have his dudes yet? Wrong tab. Wrong tab. No. Still 1 day. Okay, how about now? Looks like he's got all of his guys now. This is showing 16,000 men. Yes. Did that change the siege outlook? No. And that 12,000 men, that extra manpower is not showing here. However, I think if we convert to a tactical battle, it'll be there. Okay, well that's pretty good. We have rolled over into August 2nd, 1861, and our credit rating is still A. Also, I don't see any messages here indicating that we issued any bonds. And certainly we would have had to. Monthly Econ report. Current rating is A, very good. Debt increased by 140 million. I guess I must have missed the war bond message. Liabilities amount to 140 million. Expansion, wealth below average and increasing. Tax revenues, 441. 10 buildings, yeah. 3 hospitals, 3 markets, 3 news agencies, and 1 prison camp. Oh, right. We got a prison camp now. We should. I think I put it at Talladega. Or Tuscaloosa, someplace like that. Okay. What does the intel report say? Okay, so they're working on Militia Act 3. That makes sense. 13,000 men recruited 13 brigades. Part of that going to the Army of the Potomac up there near D.C. 5 ships. Lost 1 high-ranking officer, George Gordon. Doesn't mean he's dead, but he's at least WIA. And carrying out offensive operations. Yes, they are. At least Patterson is. So, did I miss a credit, a bond issue report? Oh, there it is, right there at the beginning. Confederacy issues bonds. Just 25 million, though. Only the one time, apparently. That's not what I expected. Oh, officer rehabilitated. There's Richard Anderson, 1st Georgia Sharpshooters. And even in that last battle, we saw their morale was fine. They fought perfectly well. With him defamed. But now he's not defamed anymore. Treasury balance. Took a big dip here at the beginning. So did the Union. Then we just popped right back up. Now, when this is in June, that's even before the campaign started. July 8th was somewhere around here, which is when the campaign actually started. Interesting. But it is here showing he's got his 16,000 men. And they're reflected as present here. Screw it. I'm just gonna go. I think they're gonna be there on the tactical map, and we'll have 16,000 against 18,000 estimated. I think that's close enough. But that will have to wait for the next episode. I think I've been talking quite a bit in this one already. If you like what we're doing with the channel, if you like this content, if you're enjoying the campaign, then leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe. If you're new to the channel or the series and would like to find your way to other episodes in this campaign that you may not have seen yet, I'm linking the playlist to the series here. At any rate, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it.